Hey friends, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm very excited to be working on a new reading vlog, and this reading vlog is going to be where I read your favorite books of 2023. So if you missed it over on my Instagram, if you want to follow my Instagram, I'll have it linked down below. But recently on Instagram, I asked in a story, I asked for, your favorite books that you've read so far this year, and based off of your responses, I curated a list of books that got recommended the most amount of times as, your favorite books that you've read this year, and I decided to read them all together in this vlog. We had some 5-star reads, we had a 1-star read. It was just a very chaotic time over here. However, before we do jump into the reading vlog, I just want to take a minute to thank today's video sponsor, which is Book of the Month. And if you've been interested about Book of the Month but you still haven't joined, now would be the time because they have their best deal of the year going on right now. And if you still haven't heard of Book of the Month somehow, then let me tell you a little bit about them. Book of the Month is a book subscription service, and it is their mission to help readers discover the books that they love and to help promote the work of emerging and up-and-coming authors. Every month, Book of the Month will have a range of maybe 5, maybe up to 7 selections for their audience to choose from. And it's really great for you because Book of the Month's team, they read the hundreds of new releases that are coming out each month, and they decide the top few that they think that you'll be the most interested in. And so they do all the work of sorting through all the new releases and just present you with a few to select from, which I think is so nice. It makes it so much easier and less daunting to try to keep up with all the new releases. Something that I think is really exciting and unique about Book of the Month is that sometimes they will have books early. So sometimes you can get a book before it's even published and available to the rest of the world. And they're always choosing books in some of my favorite genres as monthly selections. They almost always have a thriller pick, they have romance, they always have selections in so many different genres, so there really is something for everyone. Something that I find really convenient about Book of the Month is the fact that if for some reason you're not feeling any of those monthly selections, you can skip any month and you will not be charged. But I guarantee that almost all of the times you're not going to want to skip because they always have some of my most anticipated books of the year as selections, and I get so excited. Every month when Book of the Month announces their selections for that month, I get so excited to see what they're gonna be. Book of the Month also offers the best prices on new hardcover fiction books because these days, if you walk into your local bookstore, you'll find a new hardcover book anywhere between $26, even up to $30. This month, when you use the code 4U, you can get your first book for just $5. Yes, you heard that right. $5. Less than most coffee drinks these days, and you could get a new release hardcover fiction book. That is not a joke. So don't walk to this sale, run. If you're wondering which 2 books I've selected for the month of November, the first one is gonna be Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood, which this is very exciting to me because I am a big fan of Ali Hazelwood's adult romance books, and this is apparently her first attempt at a young adult romance book. And then the second book I decided to go with this month is actually Divine Rivals, which I know is a little bit outside of my comfort zone. This is not a usual kind of book that I would pick up, but I was really stoked to see that Book of the Month had Divine Rivals as an option because every now and then I do like to step outside of my comfort zone, and I'm glad that Book of the Month has some fantasy titles that I'm intrigued by, so that's always really awesome too. So yeah, these are the 2 books that I decided to go with this month, but as I mentioned, they have so many incredible selections. You can go and check them out using the link in my description, and thank you so much to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video. And now let's get on to the reading vlog. Alright, so let's get into which books I'm actually planning to read for this video. So each one of these books that I'm going to mention had at least 3 people recommending them, if not more. The first book that got recommended 3 times is Monstrilio, which this is a horror book that actually recently just got nominated at the Goodreads Choice Awards, which is really awesome. I actually had never even heard of this book before Kayla from Books and Lala. She had this as one of her Literally Dead book club picks, I think in one of these recent months here, and I kind of went into this book knowing absolutely nothing. All I know is that we're following a mother and her young son passes away, and then she keeps a part of his lung after he dies. And that's all I knew going into this book. Another book that I'll be reading during this vlog is Alone with You in the Ether, and this one was also recommended by 3 different people saying that this was one of their favorite books that they've read this year. I was actually surprised because I did think that this book was a newer release, but I think this one actually came out a few years ago. And this is another book that I don't really know too much about. I've been hearing a lot of hype for this one. I think it's mainly a romance book. It might be more literary fiction kind of style of romance, but I'm really intrigued by this. Another book that got mentioned 3 different times is gonna be Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead, which this was actually very perfect that this book got mentioned so many times because this is actually my booktube book club pick for the month of November. So I'm going to be having a live show to discuss this book at the end of the month. I'll have the link down in the description if you want to save the link in advance and turn on the notifications. But I'm so glad to hear that there were 3 of you who would say that this is one of your favorite books that you read this year, so that made me even more excited to read this one and know that it's an upcoming book club pick. How exciting. And then the 4th and final book that I'll be reading reading for this video that got recommended the most amount of times with 7 votes is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. And this is also a book that just got nominated at the Goodreads Choice Awards recently in the fiction category. This is a book that came out in around like May this year, I think, and I've had it on my TBR for months. Like literally ever since this book came out, I've been wanting to read this book. It's been getting such great reviews from everyone that I know and trust. Like almost all of my friends have been giving this 4 or 5 stars, and I've just been so curious about it and dying to read it. So I'm glad that so many of you have loved this book, and now I have the opportunity to read it for this video. So these are the 4 books that I have decided to read for this video. If you were wondering which other books were mentioned, I decided to make a list because there were a lot of other books that came up too that were also potential options for this. For example, some books that I still had on my TBR at the time that I was making this video that got mentioned quite a bit was Secret Society of Irregular Witches, we had Fourth Wing, we did have Divine Rivals mentioned a few times, Babel, Starling House, Remarkably Bright Creatures, Natural Beauty, Bright Young Women, and Vampires of El Norte. And since filming this video, I have read some of these books for other reading vlogs that I can have linked down below, which includes Fourth Wing, Starling House, and Natural Beauty were books that I ended up reading before I even did this video. And then I thought I would mention as well, because there were a lot of books mentioned as like some of your favorite books of the year that I have already read. So these are the 10 books that were mentioned the most often on this list that were books that I had already read. So I couldn't pull from these, but just in case you were curious, some of the other most popular responses were Any Man, How to Sell a Haunted House, The Quiet Tenant, The Last Word, Lessons in Chemistry, None of This is True, Nothing to See Here, 7-Year Slip, Tomorrow, 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 and Beartown. But anyways, without any further ado, let's jump into the reading vlog. Hi, I wanted to update you because I have started on the first book for this video, which is Monstrilio, and this book is reading so freaking quickly. I'm already like about 165 pages in. I actually just hit a different section that I would consider like part 2 or part 3 of the book because it's divided into 4 different sections, and this book has been incredibly sad so far. This one is more of a, you know, like literary fiction style of writing, and it is a horror book, and we're following this couple right at the beginning of this book. They lose their son, like their son dies, and it's really sad and it's really awful. And so after her son Santiago dies, his mother ends up carving out his lung and keeping his lung. And then this is a story about how his lung starts growing and almost like turning into a monster. It's literally like Monstrilio is like his lung. I think the way that this book is written is very interesting because we not only get the perspectives of, you know, both of the parents, like Joseph and Magos, like the mom and the dad, but then we also do get the perspective of one of their close family friends, which I also did really enjoy reading from that perspective. I feel like this book is really just a huge metaphor for grief and how awful grief can be, especially when it comes to a parent losing a child. I think that's one of the most powerful things in horror books, when they can show like the true reality and the horror of grief. And in a lot of ways, it's reminding me of like some of my favorite books of all time, like Pet Sematary by Stephen King is one that comes to mind, because it just has the same kind of thing where you're following parents who are dealing with grief, and it makes them question like, what would you be willing to do for your child? Because it just really makes you think about like the difficulties of parenting, and especially when you know, lose a child and you go through the unimaginable grief of losing that child and how horrific that can be. Sorry, the sun keeps going behind clouds, so the lighting keeps changing in here, but I'm enjoying this a lot more than I thought I would so far. Like, this is giving me 5-star energy so far, which is wild. Literary horror has just become like one of my favorite kinds of horror recently. You know, it's definitely kind of similar to like Chlorine or something like that, where it's like it's written in a literary fiction style, but the horror is very intense still in my mind because the horror feels more like real life things, and this book is trying to make a metaphor or statement about grief or something like that, you know? Lately, that's just been like my favorite kind of shit, and so like I'm really enjoying this even more than I thought I would. I did end up downloading the audiobook as well because I thought it would be like more difficult to get through this for some reason, but it's reading really fast actually. But the audiobook is only 8 hours long, so I've just been flying flying through this. I only have this little chunk left. I think you know the book is good when I literally have a library book and I marked like I put in one of my like sticky tabs on one of the quotes that I just thought was so powerful because I wanted to come back to it. I mean, listen to this quote. Like, how could I not tab this, okay? Quote says, "I wanted my grief, but instead I was left with a horrible nothingness and I got really scared. But then I realized fear was a thing I could feel and I clung to it. I was afraid of my loneliness. I was afraid I would never have anyone to love again, and I blamed you for it, for leaving. I was angry, furious, and then I had two emotions, fear and anger. The anger helped me wake up in the mornings and eat and clean the house and wash myself. The anger even distracted me long enough that I would forget my loneliness, and sometimes in short bursts I even felt cheerful." The way that this book talks about grief is just stunning. It's beautiful and it's sad. It's so sad. Like, sadness is the main feeling I'm getting while reading this book right now. I think this afternoon I am gonna plan to go to the gym because I think I just want to go and like walk on the treadmill and like be a little bit productive and feel like I need to get some exercise in this afternoon. So I think I'm gonna do that, and I might go ahead and just continue listening to this on audio at the gym. Does anybody else watching this, do you guys ever listen to audiobooks at the gym, or is that like a totally weird thing to do? Because I know like obviously like music is probably more like motivating at the gym. I mean, I do listen to like podcasts sometimes when I'm at the gym. Lately these days, like I just really like listening to an audiobook while I'm walking on the treadmill. Like I walk at a pretty fast pace, but like it just still feels like I'm getting good exercise in while I'm listening to my audiobook, and I feel like that's doing two productive things at the same time, and it makes me happy. I just got home from the gym, so I'm a little bit grungy right now, but I had to update you because I just finished listening to Monstrilio. After I got home from the gym, I was just doing the rest of my laundry, like folding the rest of my laundry, and I finished it while I was folding the laundry. And I was like honestly gonna cry at the end. Like, this book was freaking stunning. This book is beautiful. I think this book, it's an easy 5-star for me. It might actually be one of my favorite books that I read this year. I think I need a lot of time to like process all of my feelings because I just finished reading it like literally 5 minutes ago. Wow, what a freaking impact. And I just looked in the back of this book, and this is actually this author's debut novel. Like, this is his first novel. That's actually just so incredible and so amazing and so inspiring. You know, as I mentioned earlier, this book is told in 4 different parts, and in each part we get a different character point of view. I think for me personally, my favorite character point of view that we got was actually Joseph, which is like the dad's perspective in this. I don't know why, I just felt really connected to his character, and I was really invested in particular with his storyline for some reason. But I did love every single point of view that we got in this book, and I think each one of them made the story feel even more fleshed out and more interesting. Something that I really loved about this book that I wasn't expecting is that there are a lot of queer characters in this book, like a lot more than I was anticipating, and that was something that I really appreciated. I feel like this book is the perfect balance of like kind of weird, sad, horrific, like truly devastating, tragic shit, but then also just kind of so interesting. Like, especially towards the end, shit got really weird and really horrific and really sad. And I think this book, as far as like the themes go with like grief and like being a parent and like the idea of like losing your child, like that kind of vibe, it reminded me a lot of Pet Sematary by Stephen King, but then it also reminded me of like a lot of my other favorites. Like, for some reason, it reminded me a lot of Our Share of Night. I feel like if you loved this and you wanted something similar, I would recommend Our Share of Night, even though I know plot-wise it's not that similar, but just the feelings and the vibes that I got and the way I connected to these characters and the parent and son relationship just reminded me a lot of that book. I also feel like this belongs in the same weird literary horror family as like Our Wives Under the Sea. It reminded me of Chlorine. Like, I might have liked this book even more than I liked Chlorine, and I gave Chlorine 5 stars. I almost wish that I bought this book because this is obviously like a library copy that I was reading, and I did end up buying the audiobook that I was listening to, but I almost wish that I had the physical copy so I could just mark it up, because I feel like this is one of those books that you could annotate, and this is something that I could see myself rereading again in the future. And so like, damn, wow, y'all really came through with this first recommendation. I didn't think that this would be 5 stars stars for me, but here we are. And this is probably gonna end up in my top, 15 favorites of the year. I don't know, I have to think about it. I really love this one. So that is incredibly exciting. I can't believe we already started off with a 5-star new favorite. That makes me so excited and so hopeful for where this video could potentially go. Like, what if every book in this video is 5 stars? Anyways, I think right now it's just about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know if you can tell, but the sun is already going down. I'm still not used to the fact that the sun goes down so early now. Usually I don't mind daylight savings. Like, usually I'm the kind of person that's like, I don't mind when the sun goes down early, but for some reason this year, it's like bothering me so much. Like, it makes me so sad when the sun is going down at like 4 o'clock. So that's new, but anyways, I think we're about to make dinner, and then I think me and my sister are planning on starting the show Lessons in Chemistry, because this is, it's one of my favorite books that I've read this year actually, and they just recently adapted it into like an Apple TV show with Brie Larson. It's getting pretty good reviews on IMDb, which I'm pretty excited about. I think people are saying it is pretty accurate to the book, so I'm really excited to check this show out, and I hope it's something that we both love.
Last night, I dreamt that I was with you in the sugar blue waters, and your big strong hands, crying out like a baby. Once I knew I was asleep, hoping that just maybe it was real this time. A little rain begins to fall down, wash it away and see what stays around. And round we go now, I lay my eyes that you live by my side. Radio loud, yeah, we get wet with the top down, but I don't care as long as I got you.
Okay, hello. It has been over 24 hours since the last time that I updated you. It's actually been like 2 days, and me and my sister are we're completely caught up on the Lessons in Chemistry show, which is very exciting because I am loving that show so freaking much. Like, it is so accurate to the book, and it is making me feel all of the things, and I got emotional watching that show. Oh my gosh, it's just so good. So we're 6 episodes in, we're completely caught up as of right now, but I did want to update you because I have started on Alone with You in the Ether, and I just started reading it this morning. I'm only about 60 pages in so far, and this is one that I don't really know genre-wise like what to expect. On the back here it just says that it's a contemporary love story like no other, exploring the nature of love, what it means to be unwell, and how to face the fractures of ourselves and still love as if we're not broken. It sounds like it's going to be a very like hard-hitting kind of like romance, but like maybe not romance, maybe more like literary fiction kind of writing. The writing style has been pretty interesting so far because in this book it's almost written like a play, kind of. Like, there'll be moments like this where we get like scene and then action, and then like there's like narrators. It's interesting because the audiobook has like a full cast, because there'll be moments where it like breaks up the dialogue with like a narrator talking about like what's happening and like kind of narrating the scenes. So the writing style has been kind of an adjustment to get used to. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how I feel about this writing style so far. We're following these characters named Aldo and then Reagan, and they've both been very interesting characters. I know on the inside here it describes Aldo as a doctoral student who manages his destructive thoughts with compulsive calculations about time travel. His character is very obsessed with time travel and like talking about time travel and the possibilities of like the universe. It's very interesting because I'm also, very curious about those things, and so I'm liking those things about his character. Like, I just find his parts to be very interesting. And then Reagan, it says she is a bipolar counterfeit artist undergoing court-ordered psychotherapy. I'm finding them both to be very relatable in different ways so far, and I feel like they have really good banter because they're very like-minded in some ways. I'm also appreciating that this definitely feels like it's going to be a slow burn as far as the romance goes between these two. This book is actually also a lot shorter than I originally thought that it was. It's only about 260 pages, so I'm doing some reading sprints on my Patreon this morning. I don't think it'll take me too long to get through this entire book, so hopefully I can do that.
Saw you slip away so
Okay, hi, it's a little bit later in the afternoon, but I wanted to update you because I have still been reading Alone with You in the Ether. I've been reading this on reading sprints all day and I actually just hit page 200 and now I just took a drive. I'm actually at the gym right now because I figured I would finish reading this while at the gym, you know, like I would just listen to this audiobook while I'm on the treadmill. But now I'm concerned. I'm like, am I gonna start crying when I'm on the treadmill? Like, am I getting very emotionally attached to this? I have been adding quite a bit of tabs to this, as you can see, because I've just been loving it. Like, the writing is just so stunning. There are so many moments where these characters like say things that are just so relatable, and I feel like this is such a realistic, I guess, portrayal of what it's like to fall in love and to be like afraid of falling in love. I really think the way that it says on the back of this book about what it means to be unwell, like these are two characters who are very much not okay, but it's also just really beautiful the way that they bring out the best in each other and they really start to know each other just so well. I just think the writing in general is just really drawing me in. I'm relating a lot to these characters. There was one line in particular that I wanted to share that I really liked and that I felt like I related to this guy a lot when he said this, but he said, "Sometimes I feel like I'm just waiting for something that will never happen. Like I'm just existing from day to day, but will never really matter. I get up in the morning because I have to do something, or I'm just wasting space, or because if I don't answer the phone, my dad will be alone. But it's an effort, it takes work. On the inside, I just feel like I don't know nothing, like I'm just an algorithm that someone put in place." Like, god damn. Also, the romance, dude, the romance is romancing. Oh my god. Like the way it describes their romance and the way they talk about it, I just think it's really beautiful because they're kind of talking about how people would speculate if their attraction or like obsession with each other is healthy for them. And I like how she says, "We don't even understand time, so how are we supposed to understand health, which is a concept we made up? I don't just feel differently about you, I feel more, a lot more. It's like you woke up something inside me and it won't be quiet. It refuses to calm down, and why should it? It's not like, oh, you make me happy. It's not something as cliched as that. You make me feel like I'm alive for a fucking reason. Like for once, I'm not just a goddamn waste of time." Bitch, what? It's hitting right now. I'm really enjoying this. You know, most of the time while I was reading this on my sprints, I was like, you know, this story's good, but I'm not like super emotionally invested. I was like, it's reading like a 4-star book. But the closer that I get to the end of this book, the more that it's like leading more towards like 4.5 stars. Like, I don't know, I'm starting to enjoy it even more. I have a feeling that the ending of this book might absolutely gut me. Like, I don't really know where we're going with this, but I'm scared that I'm gonna be like emotional on a treadmill in the gym.
Into your eyes, I see we're out of time. I guess no one's to blame, nobody crossed the line. I guess we couldn't see, somehow we couldn't feel.
It's about 9 o'clock. Earlier today while I was at the gym, I did end up finishing Alone with You in the Ether. After getting home, we made a quick dinner and then my sister started to get me to watch the Vampire Diaries. I've never seen it. My sister actually just watched the Vampire Diaries for the first time earlier this year and she really loved it, and so now she wanted to rewatch it and she wanted to get me to watch it with her because I've been talking about how I'm like in a vampire mood lately. I mean, ever since reading Night's Edge and then Nestlings, I've just been like, oh my gosh, like maybe I'm entering my like vampire era. And then she was like, well, that means we gotta watch Vampire Diaries. So we only watched the first 2 tonight and it's going well so far. I also painted my nails because I got this new nail polish recently. I think I got this at like TJ Maxx. While I do love the color, like I do love how it turned out, but as you can see, it's already like smudging up so bad, and it was so annoying because this nail polish went on like super thin, like so thin that I had to do at least 3 coats just to get it this dark. And also it took forever to dry. It took like over an hour to dry, and even then it's still smudging already. Like, I don't know what the fuck is going on with this nail polish, but it's pissing me off. Anyways, not that you're here for my nail polish review, but I finished Alone with You in the Ether, and I think, okay, I don't know if this book was like the perfect 5 stars for me, but I think I am gonna give this like 4.5 stars. I really freaking love this book. I feel like there are gonna be so many people that really connect with these characters and really relate to these characters, and I feel like this story is gonna mean so much to so many people, and I think that's what's so beautiful about this. It's kind of even hard to, you know, describe this book because I feel like as far as everything that I've told you about it, it just sounds like it's like a romance story between this boy and this girl, and in a way, it is. Like, it really is that simple. It's just this really really passionate love story between these two characters who are going through their own shit, you know? And I feel like that's why this book feels so real, and then why the romance feels so real and it's so effective, because both of these characters are definitely, you know, unique individuals who are struggling with things in their lives. There's a lot of talk about mental illness in this book, especially with, you know, bipolar, because our female protagonist, she's bipolar. You know what's so funny is that I finished this book while I was like walking on the treadmill, and there was a lady standing like literally right next to me. Like I was reading it. Luckily, the ending of this book did not make me cry, so I didn't have to cry in public. But what did almost make me cry was the freaking acknowledgements. Like at the very end of this book, you know a book's good when the acknowledgements can almost make you cry. Like what the fuck? I just love reading the acknowledgements when you know that a book is so personal for an author, and that usually always hits me so much harder. Like knowing that this book is not entirely fiction, you know, like there's a lot of this author in this book, and I just think that's so beautiful and so special. I also think like, oh my gosh, look at this. I almost used all of my tabs. Like in this today, I literally used so many freaking tabs. The really like dark blue ones are for like any moments that almost made me emotional or where I almost cried, and I have 4 of those. One quote that I think really summarizes this book very well is a quote when she says, "Can you love my brain even when it is small, when it is malevolent, when it is violent? Can you love it even when it doesn't love me?" I just really love how these characters are so different in a lot of ways, but they're also very similar in a lot of ways, because I love her passion for art and the way that she talks about art and the way that she loves it. And then I also love the way that he talks about, you know, math and science, and the way that his brain is really like analytical in that way. Like numbers really mean a lot to him. I think the thing that's gonna stick with me the most about this book is the writing in particular, because there are so many beautiful quotes about love and about the universe and about finding yourself. One of the quotes that really stuck with me too is when she said, "Every time you love, pieces of you break off and get replaced by something you steal from someone else. It seems like it's the right shape, but it's slightly different every time, so that eventually, very, very quietly and over days and days and days, you are transformed into something unrecognizable, and it happens so slowly you don't even notice, like shedding scales and making new ones." Isn't that just stunning? Also, what about this one? "To love a person was to forfeit the need to place limits on them, and therefore to love was to exist in a constant paralyzing threat." Dude. Anyways, wow, another success. I am so happy with how this vlog is going. I think I've decided that I want to start on Midnight is the Darkest Hour next, because I just thought, you know, it's only about 9 o'clock right now in my room. I have the chair in my room. I just want to get all cozy and start reading the next thing.
Just wait, wait for better days to come and carry us like wind in our...
Hello, good morning. It is the next morning. I just got back from running to Safeway really quick because I just wanted to grab a few groceries, and then of course I ended up spending like $70. Like, why does this always happen? Every time I go to the grocery store, I'm like, I just need like 2 things, and then I just buy a whole bunch of things. I also like wore my jacket, but I'm still freezing. It is so cold outside today. It's only like 38 degrees even still. I can't believe how quickly it's gotten this cold here, because like it's still November, so technically it's still fall, but I swear it already feels like winter here. But anyways, some of the groceries I got include this chicken bacon ranch pizza. This is like one of my favorite frozen pizzas, and I think I'm gonna have this this upcoming weekend for my Patreon movie night, because on those movie nights I like to have like a quick dinner right before the movie starts. And so I also got one of these you know, Caesar salad kits to go with it, because I love pizza and salad. It's like one of my favorite combos. I also got more strawberries, even though I know strawberries are going out of season. You know, it's definitely a summer fruit, but I just keep buying strawberries because I love them so much. I eat them all the time. I also got more bananas. I wanted to get these sourdough English muffins because I really love English muffins. I don't know if I've ever tried the sourdough ones though, but I've been like loving everything sourdough recently, so I thought I would get those. I also got a few Chobani flips. because these things are addicting, and I like to have these even as a snack like during the day or even for dessert because they're so good. But I think these two are my favorite flavors. It's the s'mores and the cookie dough. I've tried so many different kinds of Chobani flips, and I think these two are still my like top favorites. They also had Halloween candy was 50% off. So like this entire bag was only $3. So like I just had to go for it because Kit Kats have been my shit lately. It's so weird because I never liked Kit Kats, and then randomly when I was doing my Screaming Color Readathon in October, we did the color red, and so I had Kit Kats and I tried them again and I was like, oh my god, these are actually so fire. Like I've been sleeping on Kit Kats for years. And we have the three things that I actually went to the grocery store to get, which is more cream cheese, more avocados because we were pretty much out, and then I wanted to get their loaded baked potato soup from Safeway because this one is actually really good, and because we're gonna be making turkey sandwiches tonight, which is what I needed the avocados for, I wanted the loaded baked potato soup to like go with it because nothing is better at this time of year than soups and sandwiches. Also, I did want to let you know that last night I was able to get a start on Midnight is the Darkest Hour. I got into chapter 11, which puts me at about 84 pages into this book, and so far this book is going all right. In this story, it takes place in this town called Bottom Springs that's like in Louisiana. This definitely has those like gothic kind of southern vibes to it so far, which I am really enjoying the atmosphere in this book so far. But we're following this character named Ruth. She's our protagonist, and we get two different perspectives from her. We have one that's in the present day, and then we have one that's in the past when she was 17 years old. Dude, I was so confused at the beginning. I literally thought that the present day Ruth was like an elderly woman for like the first chapter or two. I was so confused. And then I started to realize, oh no, it's just like it's not that many years later. It's like, I think she's in her 30s, maybe her 20s, maybe her 40s. I don't know. It hasn't really specified, but for some reason in my brain, the name Ruth, and then she has a friend named Everett, and I just assumed that, but I was wrong, I think. Something that I think is really intriguing about this book so far is she said that there's this like myth in their town that's called the Low Man, and this guy is like supposed to be like scarier than the devil because, you know, they live in a very like religious town. She comes from a very religious family, and I think that's gonna play a huge part in this story. But she said there's a myth called the Low Man. He takes the shape of a beautiful man and he would sneak into your room and bite your neck, kind of like a vampire. The idea of the Low Man is giving me such like vampire kind of vibes. I think it's interesting though because it's setting up this like, I don't know if it's supposed to be like this romance between her and Everett, you know, because in the past chapters it kind of shows them when they were like in high school together when they were both 17-ish, and like something happened and he helped her like take care of things, and so their friendship got really strong when they were younger. I don't know if they were ever together. It's not very clear to me if there was ever like actually something that happened between them. And then now in the present day there's like more tension between them. Now in the present day she's currently dating a cop. I've also been seeing a lot of people say that this book reads like Twilight fan fiction, and after hearing that I was like, wait, what? But now that I've read about 80 pages, I think I get what you mean. Like, I can see what you mean. And she does directly kind of talk about Twilight. Like, there's like a whole page where she talks about how she discovered Twilight when she was like 14 years old, and she just became absolutely obsessed with it, and it like took over her whole life, and how Edward Cullen is like her biggest dreamboat ever. So like, the chances of this, you know, really being inspired by Twilight are pretty significant. Like, they're pretty high, I think. I just realized too, the quote, like the little blurb on the front of this book says, "Where the Crawdads Sing meets Twilight meets Thelma and Louise." That actually makes sense because it does give the Where the Crawdads Sing vibes in terms of like we're following this girl who lives in the South and like everybody's just kind of acting weird. Like, I don't know, I could definitely see the comparison there. And then the Twilight, yeah, like if there's this myth of this like low man in this town, of this like vampire-like dude who can like come into your house, like I can see some of the similarities there. I don't know, so far I'm not like absolutely obsessed with it. I think it's a little bit slow moving, to be honest, at the beginning here. But I think the plan for this afternoon is to try and finish up the rest of this book. I know I still have quite a ways to go, but I'm thinking that I want to finish this up today. I also think I'm gonna make a hot coffee because it's so freaking cold out that like as much as I want iced coffee, like I'm definitely an iced coffee girl, but today I think I need the hot coffee because I'm so cold. I wanted to give you a quick update because I have still been reading Midnight is the Darkest Hour. I'm on chapter 23 now and I'm on page 182. I'm not gonna lie to you, I haven't been reading this all day. I've been taking so many breaks from it because I am so bored out of my mind reading this, which is so annoying. I actually took a break. I like washed my hair. I don't know if you can tell. I was like playing guitar upstairs. I just needed to take a break from it because I'm so bored. In this story, we're going back and forth in time from when Ruth was younger to like the present day. And I realized, by the way, that she's not even that old. It's only a 6-year difference from when she was like 17 to like now. So I guess she's only supposed to be like 23 years old. But I think something that's making the pacing of this book feel so slow for me is because almost every other chapter we get a flashback of like either when she was 17. Lately we've been getting flashback chapters to when she was like 11 years old, 13 years old, and just seeing like glimpses of her childhood. And just to be honest, I just don't care. I don't care about the childhood flashbacks. I'm not really enjoying the romance as much as I was hoping to. Like, I just don't really feel connected to these characters at all. I think the only thing I'm really liking about the book at this point is the atmosphere. I think it does have really great atmosphere. You can definitely tell like this takes place in the South. I think the narrator on the audiobook is doing a great job with like her accent, like her Southern accent. But as far as like the characters go, like I don't give a shit about any of the characters, which really sucks because I have a feeling I'm not going to enjoy this book very much because I don't really care about their fate. You know, I was really interested in the idea of like this low man or this like vampire-like creature, but it hasn't really played a big enough part in the story, or at least not as big as I thought it would be. I also started putting down tabs every time she talks about Twilight because it's quite a bit. It's quite a lot. One part that I thought was really interesting, the way that this book ties in the religion with like the vampire weird shit, is that she's like, have you ever heard of communion? And she's like telling this guy about how she's like, well, you drink the wine and eat the bread and it's like, you know, Christ's blood and his bone, or it's supposed to represent those things with Jesus. And he's like, that sounds kind of like a vampire. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. So I like the way that it's like tying in religion with like the creepiness. I'm usually not the biggest fan of like, you know, thriller and horror books when they involve religion, just because I'm not a big religious person myself and I don't tend to care. In some ways, like some of those things, it was almost feeling like Midnight Mass to me, but like not nearly as good or as thought-provoking as Midnight Mass. It's like it has those potential vibes with like the small town and the very religious thing, but it's not quite going there. Who knows, maybe it will go there. I think I'm almost at the halfway point now and I'm just, I'm not loving this. It's so boring. Even right now where I'm at, the things that the characters are like investigating and like trying to figure out, like I could not care less. So that's truly unfortunate. I'm so sad about it, honestly, because Ashley Winstead wrote In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, which is just one of my favorite books of all time. So the fact that this is not hitting for me is really, really sad. Look at that soup and look at that sandwich. Oh my god. Hi, it's 10 o'clock at night and I just finished Midnight is the Darkest Hour and I don't want to come on here and talk about this. Like, I don't want to talk about it. I was so excited for this book. Like, you have no idea. I wanted to love this so badly, and I can't even put into words how much I didn't like this book. I'm so annoyed. I'm so sad. I'm really upset about it because I really wanted to love it. This might be like one of my top biggest disappointments of the year, and this might be my lowest rated book club pick for my own book club of this whole year. Not only was this book, you know, so incredibly boring for the most part, and I didn't give a shit about any of the characters, but also like the amount of times that this book had to mention Twilight was just astronomical. Like, it was just not necessary at all. There was one redeeming quality that I wanted to share with you. I really liked this one quote that was about teenage girls, and I really do love what this book has to say about, you know, teenage girls and how people just dismiss teenage girls as like unintelligent and just like obsessed with romance, like young, stupid girls. I love when she said, "What is it about us teenage girls that claws so deeply under people's skin? We are reviled and desired in equal measure, cringed at, laughed at, then lunged at. The sheer effort people like my father and my teachers have spent trying to control us, so many dress codes and rigid rules and unspoken ones we have taken on the mantle of policing ourselves, looking in the mirror and wincing at our reflections, drawing our own blood first before others can." There was a really great quote about teenage girls, and I really appreciated that. I also do appreciate the way that this book kind of talks about religion and kind of points out a lot of the flaws with certain ideas of religion and the hypocrisy, and that's not anything that I have with the issue that I have with this book. The issue that I have with this book is a long list of other things that I'm going to talk about in the live show, because I have a live show coming up where I'm going to be talking about this book, which is unfortunate because I don't really want to talk about this book because I don't want to roast. I really hope that my co-host, Elias, I hope he ends up enjoying this one, because if not, it's gonna be a roast. And I'm sad about it because I don't want to roast it, but oh my gosh, can we talk about that ending? You know, I am all for an ending that like leaves you with just a little something. It doesn't give you all the answers that you're looking for, but I don't know if I've ever read an ending that was just this abrupt. I was like, huh? This ending was definitely something else, and I've got to say, I wasn't a fan. I was not a fan of the way that this book ended. I thought, you know, maybe the ending could redeem itself, because a lot of times when people say that they don't really like the ending of a book, especially in like the thriller or the horror genre, I usually have the opposite opinion, where like usually a lot of people hate it and then I end up loving it. But no, this time I 100% agree with the masses. I did not like the way that this book ended. I'm so frustrated because I don't want to be a hater. I don't want to be. Anyways, I'm so sorry that I didn't love this book. I'm so sorry because I know some of you recommended it to me as like one of your favorite books that you've read this year, and I'm so sorry that I didn't love this one. I think if anything, this book will make for a very interesting discussion for the booktube live show. It's gonna be interesting, that's for sure. So now at this point for this vlog, all I have left to read is Yellowface. I have pretty high hopes for Yellowface, I'm not gonna lie. I really feel like that one's gonna be, you know, an improvement over this book at the very least. I feel like this vlog has been kind of not boring, but just kind of like boring. I haven't really left the apartment in the last couple of days unless it was like to go to the gym or like to go to the grocery store. Like, how boring. I think tomorrow, to make up for that, I think I might try to go down to one of the local parks and just kind of chill and read by the water. I mean, hopefully it's not too freaking cold to actually do that, but maybe I'll like go and sit inside a coffee shop or like do something, you know, like I need to get out of the apartment and like keep it interesting, you know?
In my mouth is a desert, running dry on the tip of my tongue.
Alright, hi, it is the next morning and I just drove down to the park down here. I mean, yes, this park is about like, it's almost like a 40-minute drive from my apartment, but is it worth it every time? Yes. And while I was on the drive down here, I started listening to Yellowface and I got all the way up to chapter 5, which puts me at about like 58 pages in. The chapters are a little bit longer in this book than I was expecting, or at least chapter 1 was about 20 pages long, and chapter 1 was insane. Like, chapter 1, so much happened already just at the beginning of the story. All I really knew about this book going in is that we would be following this white female author who like steals the book from her Asian best friend. And the first chapter was really interesting because, you know, we're following from the perspective of this white protagonist. And I think the thing that's really interesting about this book is that it's written by an Asian author writing from the perspective of a white protagonist. And this girl, this, you know, protagonist is kind of awful. Like, I don't know, she's kind of like a really shitty, terrible person. She talks about her friend Athena, and it's almost like they're not even friends. Like, she keeps talking about how like, oh, they're only friends because they're both authors and they both happen to live in the same area and they both have like some similar interests, but like she doesn't seem to give a fuck, honestly, about this girl. Like, she doesn't give a fuck. She has like an insane amount of jealousy towards her friend, being like, not saying that she like doesn't deserve what she has, but she's almost just jealous. Like, she wants what she has so badly that she like lets it cloud her judgment. And they go out to get drinks on this one night and they're celebrating because I guess one of Athena's books got like a Netflix deal or something, so another one of her books is going to be getting adapted. Reading from the perspective of this white protagonist has been very interesting because she just doesn't seem to give a fuck about Athena. Like, she's raging with so much jealousy. She just keeps talking about how her publishing experience hasn't been going so well so far and how Athena just seems to have like blown up overnight and all of her books have been super successful and they're getting adaptations and like all this shit that's going on, and she's just incredibly jealous. I think this book is really interesting because, you know, this is an author who knows things about the publishing industry, and I think it's really interesting that she's making so much commentary about the publishing industry, but I actually really like that about this. I wasn't sure if this was gonna read more like literary fiction or just like fiction in general, or if it was gonna read more of like a mystery thriller, because I've seen people categorizing it as both, and so far it is kind of reading a little bit like a mystery thriller, but I don't think the book is gonna really go in that direction of like a typical mystery thriller kind of storyline. I think it is gonna lean more into into the fiction, but like that first chapter, I was like, holy shit. Because this girl, like our protagonist, she's actually with Athena when she dies in the first chapter. And like, that was horrifying. This book is definitely reminding me of a thriller that I really love called The Plot, which is about, you know, a college professor who like steals the work of one of his most promising students after the student dies. Because this is kind of the same scenario, you know, right at the beginning of this book, Athena dies, like her friend dies, and it was actually on the night where Athena was trying to show her her new manuscript and being like, oh, do you want to read my new manuscript? Like, I've got this whole new idea. And so she literally read the manuscript that night that her friend Athena died and took the manuscript, and then she took it home and she's been like editing it, rewriting it, making it into her own thing, and now she's publishing it under her own name as if like she took full credit for this idea. And it's really interesting because it just reminds me a lot of that book The Plot, because that's also about a character who's like stealing the idea for a book and trying to like make it into their own thing and taking full credit. I just think this is such an interesting kind of thing to read about in general. Like I love books that follow writers. I love books that are about books. I love books like this that kind of talk about the publishing industry and like how hard it can be to get books published to begin with. So I'm really invested in this so far. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think our main character is an absolute piece of shit, and so I'm really hoping that it's gonna end up with like her getting caught for like all the things that she's doing, because this is so awful. You know, it's only 12:30 in the afternoon right now, but it feels so much later in the day. Like, I don't know why the sun feels like it's gonna set very soon. Like, it's already so far in the sky. But anyways, I'm going to try to read by the water as much as I can this afternoon, but if it's way too fucking cold, I might actually go and sit in the coffee shop that's just down here.
I can taste your lies, how to measure the love you throw around. I could never hold you down. One of us will have to take a bow. Feeling you so close to me, we drive around. Everlasting love, so much to go around. You got me so high, I can't come down. I hope you know that I will never let you go. If all I do is dim your glow, then fly on, baby, please just go. Your soul is the ocean, and I can't touch the floor, so full of emotion. I can't keep any more. Are we at a time where we be swallowed whole? Don't give up on us now. One of us will have to take a bow. Feeling you so close to me, we drive around. Everlasting love, so much to go around. You got me so high, I can't come down.
Alright, hi, I am home from going out to the park today. I literally spent the entire afternoon out on the beach, and then I spent the afternoon in the coffee shop, and then I was walking along the pier, and I was listening to this audiobook the entire day. I actually finished it while I was out at the beach. Like, I would have updated you sooner because I have so much to say about this book because I absolutely fucking loved it. I loved it so much. And I'm sorry I didn't get the chance to update you sooner, but it's because I was literally so engaged in the story, so invested. I couldn't even put this book down long enough to want to update the camera. I mean, that, and also because, you know, I was in public and I was outdoors and it was windy, and like, I don't know if the audio quality would have been that great. Oh my god, I just had the most lovely day today. It was kind of cold outside, but it wasn't like too cold to the point where it was like miserable being outside. And oh my god, I love this so much. Like, I think not only is this an easy 5-star for me, I think I found another like new favorite book of the year. This might be in my top 10, my top 15 of the year. I don't know. I loved it. All I know is that I loved it. I think this book really ticks a lot of boxes for me personally because, you know, how I mentioned, I love books that follow writers. I love books that are kind of like about books and like the process of writing books. And with this, I don't think I've ever read a book quite like this that calls out the publishing industry in such a straightforward way. Like, this author is so bold for writing a book like this. The realness, it was actually so refreshing to see something that's so honest, like so brutally honest honest about the publishing industry. So I really loved that. I also love books that have kind of like an unreliable narrator, or like somebody that we just don't know if we can trust, and also an unlikable main character. Like I love that in books like this. This isn't exactly a thriller, but in a way it kind of reads like a thriller to me just because it's so fast paced. Like I literally read this whole book basically within one sitting because I couldn't put it down. I just had to know where it was going. I think this book is so relevant right now, you know? I think this book is really relevant. This is just showing the realities of, you know, what it looks like when a white author writes a story about representation that they do not have. Like a white woman writing a story about Chinese characters, and I mean, they don't even know that she's taken this story. Like it's not even her own story. Even just the conversation in general about white people writing characters that are like people of color, and like whether or not those are their stories to tell, I think is a very interesting and very relevant conversation right now. I mean, just the fact that this girl, her name is June Hayward, okay? Like that is one of the whitest names you ever heard in your freaking life. But when she goes to publish this book, because they want her to be more like racially ambiguous, they decided to publish her book under the name Juniper Song, which Juniper is her full name, I guess, but then Song is her middle name, so that some people might think Song is like an Asian last name. That in itself right there is just like a little bit yikes, right? It's a little bit like yikes. Also the way that this book kind of talks about, you know, sensitivity readers and how that's something that authors usually have to deal with when they're writing about things that they might not fully comprehend. Like say if a white author writes about a black character, then they'll have a black person come in to do a sensitivity reading of it to make sure it's not doing anything offensive. And like that whole conversation was very interesting. I love the way that this book actually talks about booktube. Like it was really cool. She actually used the phrase like, oh, a booktuber like talked about this on her channel, and I was like, oh my gosh, like booktube in a book, like how cool is that? I don't know if I've ever seen a book directly like specifically mention booktube like this, which was really cool. I also love that she mentioned BTS at least 3 times. Like I started tabbing every time BTS came up because I was like, ah! I'm not gonna lie, there was a moment towards the end where it was starting to go in a direction where I wasn't sure if I was like enjoying where it was going or like what was happening, but then luckily what I was thinking was gonna happen like it didn't end up going in that direction, and I was like, okay, thank God, because I didn't really want to see it end that way. But the way that this book ended, I also just really loved the ending of this book. I thought it was so well done. I just have a ton of respect for this author to be writing this kind of story right now because it's just very bold. You know, like I said, I've never seen someone so directly address the issues within publishing. The fact that this white author character, you know, June, the fact that she has the audacity to like complain that publishers are only interested in like diverse stories now, and like white authors have a disadvantage if they don't have a diverse background. Like literally shut the fuck up. Like sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up. But it was just so interesting being in her head, you know, because like she's clearly a shitty person. She's a piece of shit friend, but like the relationship they had was just so interesting to read about, because I'm also a really big fan of reading about kind of like toxic female friendships, and this is one of the most toxic female friendships that I've ever read in my freaking life. It was just really cool to see like not only the writing of a book process from like an author character, but also to see like the publishing process and like the branding and everything that goes with publishing a book, like going to events and dealing with book Twitter like lashing out at you, and like scandals happening and things happening, like people think you have beef with other authors, and like it was just so dramatic, but in a way that was so engaging and so interesting. I just absolutely loved this reading experience. It was so entertaining. Like it's been a long time since a book has completely just like captured my attention, and like I couldn't even get up to like I was just sitting in that coffee shop for way longer than I thought that I would, because I literally couldn't get up and walk out of there because I was so like needed to be invested on the page, you know what I mean? I thought it was really funny too, the way that there's this direct quote where they say, they tell authors never to look at Goodreads, but nobody follows that advice. None of us can resist the urge to know how our work is being received. And it just makes me laugh because it's like so brutally honest. Like of course they always tell authors never to look at the reviews, but I'm sure the majority of authors are looking at the reviews because, you know, those things matter, and even though the reviews aren't for the authors, they affect the authors. So like of course authors are probably going to be looking at the reviews even though it's not good for them sometimes. I also can't help but relate a little bit when June was saying, she said, I can't help it. I need to know what the world is saying about me. I need to sketch out the contours of my digitally perceived self, because at least if I know the extent of the damage, then I'll know how much I should be worried. Like I feel like as someone who exists online, I could relate to that in a way. Like it's hard to know know there are people talking about you online and you don't have any control over what people are saying, or like people can be perceiving you in different ways that might not even be true. And so like I kind of related to her a little bit in that aspect. I just love this book. I love how self-aware this book is. I love what it has to say about the publishing industry. I've never read anything quite like this, even though I have read the trope in the past of like someone stealing somebody else's book, and I love that trope. I love it, but I think this one did it in a way that was even better and more interesting. Now this has got me thinking, since I loved Yellowface as much as I did, I'm like, should I check out the fantasy books that this author has written? Because I know she's written, what, The Poppy War and Babel, I think, and even though I'm not, you know, clearly not a fantasy reader, I was thinking maybe, you know, since I loved her writing so much in this, like maybe I would enjoy her writing in her other books. So let me know if you think I should give those a shot, or if you've read any of her other books and if you think it would be something I would like, let me know that. Like, wow, I'm so glad I decided to end the vlog with this one instead of ending it with Midnight is the Darkest Hour, because I'm so upset about Midnight is the Darkest Hour. I'm still debating my rating, but you know, it's not looking good. I think it's probably gonna fall between a 1-star or a 2-star, like, but honestly, a 2-star seems generous because of how much that book just gave me a big headache, you know? I was actually messaging earlier today with my friend Sarah without an H. I was messaging her about it and we were just talking about it and I was like, what the fuck? And so I don't know, I'm glad I didn't end the video with like a complete bummer of a situation, because instead I got to end it with finding a new favorite. So like, this is incredible. I had 3 new favorites in this video. I couldn't have asked for this to go any better. I mean, yeah, it's truly unfortunate that I had a 1-star, possibly a 1-star book, and it was for my own book club. Like, that is truly devastating. It's really devastating. But otherwise, I think this video just went so perfectly. Like, I never imagined that I would find 3 new all-time favorites. So like, that's really great. You'll have to let me know what you think of any of these books if you've read them. I would love to know your thoughts. And thank you so much for watching, as always, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye!